Hello neighbors, welcome to the KPFB Health Program's cooking video on how to manage diabetes, being overweight, or having obesity.
Hi. Today we are going to be making a dish specially made for people who have diabetes, who are overweight, or obese. This whole meal is going to be made with food from the Kenai Peninsula Food Bank and is something that you can prepare at home. We're also going to be posting this recipe on Facebook as well.
We're also going to show you some tips on how to manage these health conditions. But anyway, Stephen, can you describe this dish to us?
Yeah, today we are going to be making a soy ginger salmon with quinoa and a vegetable medley.
That sounds really good. Not only is it tasty, but it also follows a lot of the Mayo Clinic's recommendations for managing these health conditions. One of the most important things for managing these is eating healthy carbohydrates like fruits, vegetables, legumes like beans and peas, whole grains, and low-fat dairy products. These foods can also help keep blood glucose levels in a safe range throughout the day, especially if you're eating 3 times a day.
One of my favorite benefits of this dish is that it avoids less healthy carbs, like foods with added fats, sugars, and salts. Foods like that can make blood sugar jump up and cause hyperglycemia, sugar crashes, and other bad health effects. Of course, the best diet to follow for diabetics and people who are overweight or obese is a diet made specially for them by a registered dietitian.
Absolutely. Make sure to talk to your doctor about setting up a diet plan that's just for you if you struggle with diabetes, being overweight, or having obesity. But let's get started with that prep work.
Alright, so we're going to be preparing our vegetables for the vegetable medley. And you want to make sure that you have a firm grip. You hold your knife like this, not by the handle. This gives you more control over your knife.
Okay.
So there are many ways to cut vegetables. This way we're going to cut on a bias.
That is really fast.
I go faster.
Gosh, how do you get it so even?
Practice.
Okay. I guess there's hope for me after all, right?
Yeah. All right.
So is there a particular size that you like to cut them?
So I also cut for uniformity, but also you don't want to have it too big, or too small. It all, has to fit in your mouth, I guess. But
right.
Look pretty at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense. I really like that there's a lot of fiber in this dish. I know for diabetes, it's really important to get a lot of fiber in your diet, like, vegetables like what you're doing right now. There's also nuts and fruits, legumes, fish, and whole grains. They'll really help you lose weight and then also manage your blood sugar. Oh, wow. So that's how you core it.
That's a little technique I picked up over the years. I used to do it a harder way, which is a lot more time consuming.
Okay.
This technique, can be more efficient if you're careful, though, as long as you don't be too wasteful.
Okay. So you just kind of cut along the outside and remove the core that way?
And it works with other peppers as well. You can do it with jalapenos and different kinds of chilies as well.
Oh, that's nice. That way you don't have to deal with the seeds going everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. It makes quick work of it. All right, so I'm going to be julienning this onion. Cut the ends off in half. And then we're going to go for something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you turn it over because you don't
you want to get them longwise versus having the complete half moons.
Okay.
If you cut it this way, and then you just kind of break them apart and they make nice, long, pretty.
Okay, that looks nice. That's way
Just got
easier
to kind
than...
of break them apart a little bit so you're not having half an onion in each bite.
Right.
So the uniformity and the size is crucial to having a beautiful yet edible dish.
Right. Probably helps everything cook evenly, too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So do you normally like to do the vegetables first before getting into anything else?
So traditionally, before you prepare any dish, you do, I'm traditionally French trained.
Uh-huh.
So they call it mise en place, which is basically means put in place, which is you're preparing, you have everything ready to go before you start cooking. So I'm going to do my mise en place where I'm going to have all my ingredients ready to go before I actually start cooking.
Okay.
That way you're not stopping in the middle of the cooking process and trying to cut up an onion that you forgot or everything. You have everything in order. Organization is key.
Well, that makes sense. So do you have any tips or tricks on how to not cry when you're doing onions?
So it just happens. There's nothing you can do. I mean, I've seen people that actually have created onion goggles. I have not tried them, but
Wow.
Maybe one of these days I'll be fortunate enough to find them.
All right.
All right, so that looks pretty good. Go ahead and just incorporate everything into the same bowl.
Okay, because it's all going into the
It's all going to be just sauteed together. And last ingredient will be the tomatoes. And we'll just go ahead and half them because sometimes they'll just end up popping in your mouth. And
oh, yeah.
also
Getting juice all over the place.
Getting juice all over the place. This just makes it a little bit easier to eat.
So is there a reason why you went with the cherry tomatoes instead of...
So I like the flavor of these are actually grape tomatoes.
Oh, really?
Yes, I like the flavor of them. Usually the more red your tomato, the more flavor you're going to have. And these ones tend to have a little bit more sweetness, which will balance out with the rest of it. And just ultimately it's easy, nice pieces. They hold together and lots of fun colors there.
Okay, and then you just kind of mix everything together?
Yeah, we're just going to mix those together and then we'll season them. As we start to saute them, we'll use extra virgin olive oil. Alright, now we're going to prepare the marinade for the salmon. We'll start with the garlic here, and here's a fun little trick. You can apply with both hands and just push down on the bulb. Kind of move it around. And sometimes you have to rotate it. And then you can just bust it open.
Oh, wow.
And get what you need out of there. We'll just start with about 4 right now. Move this off to the side. Any of those little tidbits in there.
So how do you keep your board clean?
So different boards have different purposes. So you definitely want to have, one for raw meat and one for vegetables and stuff. But ultimately, just wiping it down consistently. And all of our scraps actually go to all the hog farmers nearby.
Oh, really?
So nothing goes to waste. They eat everything.
That's nice.
So yeah, I smash it with the back of the knife so it kind of opens up. There's a lot of different fun techniques people have created over the years. However, that seems to be the most efficient without going too overboard.
Okay. So I noticed you put your fingers kind of behind the blade.
Yeah, you're supposed to curl your fingertips in so you don't cut your fingertips because it does happen more often than not.
Right.
And we're just going for a sort of a rough chop mince here because this is just going to be in the marinade.
Okay.
Should be good. Add that into our bowl. Next we're going to move on to the ginger.
Okay. So I see you've got raw ginger here.
And this is fresh ginger. And I have another little trick which is fun. Most people don't know how to approach it, but if you use the spoon, you can literally just scrape the skin right off of it. Super easy.
Oh, that is way easier than trying to peel it.
Any old spoon, there's nothing special about this one.
Wow.
So that way you get that skin off. And ginger tends to be kind of fibrous, so there are multiple techniques. But since we're just putting this in the marinade for flavor, we're just going to be cutting it into slices for now versus dicing it up or pureeing it into a paste.
Okay.
So you can just cut it into slices. And that should be more than enough for our fish. And then if you want to, you can macerate it to pull out more flavor if you want, but I think we'll be just fine with that.
Okay. So by macerate it, do you mean like crush it?
Yeah, you can crush it. You can grab, you can use, depending on your knife, you can use like the back of your handle. You can use a meat mallet.
Okay.
The idea is, because ginger is a bit fibrous, and it helps out a lot to just leave it intact so you can pull it out. You just want, the flavors are so potent that they will just incorporate themselves. But it depends on the level of ginger that you would like.
Okay.
All right, so now we are going to add our soy sauce to this marinade. And we're going to do about, for 2 fillets, probably about 3 tablespoons.
Okay.
Heavy tablespoons, that is.
Right.
And then since this, I normally like to use low sodium, but since this is the food bank, we don't really get to pick and choose. So I'm next going to add some water.
Oh, okay, to kind of even it out.
Yeah, so it'll kind of break down the sodium content.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, I got some water coming here, so I'll add just 2 tablespoons of water.
I know that's really important for people who have diabetes, is keeping their salt less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day.
Correct. Okay, so next we're going to add some rice vinegar. I'm just going to add a teaspoon of that.
Oh, okay.
Then we will add a teaspoon of the sesame oil.
Okay.
These nice Asian flavors in here.
Right. And I believe sesame oil is actually considered a good fat too.
It's a yummy one.
Yeah.
They actually make a more refined version of the sesame oil, which can be used for cooking without having such a pungent sesame flavor as well.
Okay.
I actually have some.
That would actually be really helpful for people with diabetes too.
All right, so we have those ingredients in there. That's kind of the base for our marinade. We just need a little bit of sweetener. In this case, we're using some stevia in the raw.
Oh, perfect. That definitely has less sugar than, well, sugar.
Yeah, there is hardly any to speak of. So we're going to do about a half tablespoon, which we'll spread pretty far throughout here. Just want a nice little sweetness to it.
Okay.
And then...
So back to the fats, just for you guys watching at home, some of the other good fats that you can try are things like nuts, avocados, and then oils like the sesame oil, olive oil, which we're also using today, and then peanut and canola oil. But you have to be careful not to go too overboard with the oil.
Okay, so I poured our marinade into the bag. We'll then add the salmon. This is fresh coho salmon that I had actually caught myself on Saturday.
Awesome. A lot of people during the summer, they donate fresh fish to the food banks. This is actually something you can find here, which is great. And actually, speaking of fish, you can eat fish like salmon, tuna, mackerel, and sardines. And it's best to do that at least twice a week. It's helpful for your heart health, blood sugar, and weight loss.
So now, we're going to marinate this for about 15-20 minutes while we prepare our quinoa. All right, now we're going to prepare the quinoa. It is actually fairly simple. It's easier than rice.
Wow.
And so what we're going to do is I have 1 cup of quinoa and 1 3/4 cup of water. So we're just going to go ahead and combine the two together in a small sauce pot. This happens to be the size I'm working with, and it should do just fine. So we'll combine the water.
Perfect. So, you know, we've talked a lot about good foods, but we're going to talk a little bit about some foods to stay away from. So for those of you listening at home, it's good to avoid foods that are high in saturated fats like butter, hot dogs, bacon, sausage, and coconut oils. And trans fats are also good to stay away from, things like processed foods, shortening, baked goods, and margarine. And it's also helpful to limit your cholesterol by eating fewer egg yolks, organ meats, liver, and high-fat dairy and animal products. So what's next?
So now we're going to bring it to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, we're going to cover it, and then we cook it on simmer for about 15 minutes, and then we'll turn it off and just let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes until it finishes cooking without heat.
All right, awesome.
All right, now we're going to prepare our salmon. We have a cast iron skillet here, which is a preference I like to use. And we get it real hot. I'm using sesame oil. And we're just going to sear this to perfection. I try to get most of the moisture off the salmon.
Okay. So you just kind of wiggle it out of the bag?
You can pat it dry or whatever, but since it's yummy marinade, I can just go ahead and just try to wipe most of it off. We'll go ahead.
Looks good. So are you able to cook the whole thing on the stove top?
The entire dish?
Yeah.
The entire dish is going to be done here on the stove top. The salmon specifically, they're thin cuts. The coho, the red salmons, are not typically too thick, so if you had thicker fish, you'd want to finish it in the oven to prevent an oversear, I would say.
Okay.
While the fish is cooking, I can go ahead and come over here and we can start our pan. And we can start sauteing our veggies. A medium-high heat on there.
And you can blow over this while the quinoa's still cooking too?
Yes, the quinoa is actually setting now. It's been cooking for 15 minutes, and it's just going to rest for about 10 minutes. So by the time we're complete here, the quinoa will be perfect.
Perfect.
So we're going to use olive oil.
That's one of those healthy fats we talked about, right?
Yummy stuff.
So does this pan have to get really hot too?
This pan, definitely, the hotter the better, because
Okay.
we want to be able to cook the vegetables as quickly as possible without, we don't want them to get soggy, so we want them to be firm and slightly golden brown.
Okay. So how do you tell if the oil's hot then?
So there's a couple different ways. It can start to look wavy. You can kind of see waves in it. You can also take a drop of water and throw in there,
Okay.
and it'll start to fizzle. I can show you that trick.
Oh.
Usually one good trick to check. We're just going to do a very simple saute with these. And I have a salt, pepper, garlic, and onion mixture that I like to season with.
Okay.
I'm going to incorporate those.
So if we're definitely not as experienced, can we use a spoon?
Yes, you can use a spatula if you choose.
Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and check our salmon. Got a nice coloration on it.
Okay.
Let's put that.
Okay, so you look for it to be a little bit on the brown
Yeah,
side.
that's basically just a, I don't know, it usually tends to get a little bit more brown when you're using brown sugar, but since we're using stevia, it has a little less of a browning on it.
Okay.
All right, now to finish up our couscous, I'm going to add a little drizzle of olive oil.
Okay. Is that so it doesn't stick together?
That's so it doesn't stick together, but it also, has a nice flavor.
Okay.
Olive oil. And I'll add just a pinch of salt, and that is fresh sea salt. Or fresh. That is sea salt. Add a little bit of pepper. Just a touch more. And then we're going to do some lemon zest,
Okay.
which adds a nice, vibrant touch.
Probably go well with the salmon, right?
Of course. And I'll add a little bit of lemon juice to it as well.
Okay.
So go ahead and plate this up.
All right. So following the plate method, what you can see Stephen is doing here is he's filling about a quarter of the plate with whole grains. So that's our quinoa. You can also use brown rice or like a starchy vegetable like a potato. You're also going to use about half of the plate for the vegetables, which you can see he's doing now. And this is really to help manage your weight and then also your glucose levels, which is really nice. So yeah, you fill about half of the plate with those veggies. And then you're going to do the last quarter of your plate with some protein. So that's going to be our delicious salmon here. You can also add small amounts of good fats, which is what we did with the quinoa. He added some of that olive oil in there. And then you can add a cup of fruit or dairy, and you can also have like a glass of water, unsweetened tea or coffee, things like that in there. Other ways that you can make this kind of work a little bit with your diet is through counting carbs or working with a dietitian to choose different foods to personalize your diet, or you can use the glycemic index to kind of pick out different foods that you like to eat. But kind of general rule of thumb, we like to use the plate method. All right, let's go ahead and taste this. I am going to have one of these zucchinis. This looks
Go
great.
straight for the salmon. Star of the dish.
Mmm. This is really good. Who knew eating healthy could taste so good, right?
It's amazing what you can do in 20 minutes, isn't it?
Right? All right, for those of you watching at home, if you have questions about anything in this video, just leave a comment below and be sure to like this video, and we'll see you soon. But until then, let's eat healthy.